in the bishop, one of the bishop pawns, but never ever.
But I guess Magnus said yesterday the only thing he's never going to play is the G pawn.
Yeah, he's never going to play the grob.
Yeah.
Move
G4.
that pawn to G4.
I'm actually really excited about this move more than anything else. I just guess the move. It's incredible. It could be anything.
Oh, I wish we'd run a Twitter poll on what his first move would be. Or something.
I know.
Well, we can ask our audience, they have a few seconds to find out.
Okay, they're going to be off soon.
They're going to be off, yeah.
Quickly
What will
tweet
be
us.
the opening move? Will Magnus play something strange? I mean, he doesn't look in that funny mood right now. But look at Anish. You know, he must be excited as well.
Yeah, I think Anish would love to see anything. Oh, Kaya, you're right.
Result.
D4, it's a normal-ish opening for now.
H4. Can we see him do H4 now? Yeah, this
Harry
is
attack.
The Harry attack. This is one of my favourite openings.
Your chessable courses, Simon.
It is, yeah. If White pushes this pawn 2 squares 4s, it's a chessable course I did with Richard Palliser. And again, if you're a cheapskate like that Twitter guy earlier, you can look at it for free. No, he's gone for a more positional approach. Okay. This is very sensible.
Yeah, this is normal chess.
We don't want to see normal chess, do we? So
maybe he's saving it for the knockouts now, Magnus. And yeah, as you mentioned, it's very normal, very solid as well. We see one of, I'm trying to remember the exact name, the solid system of the Fianchetto Grunfeld.
Ooh.
I think that's what Peter Svidler called it in his chessable course. And this white queen coming out, defending a pawn in the centre. Very logical stuff.
I've always called this kind of setup that Black has produced the Grunfeld Slav. Is that correct, or is that just me making things up?
That would make sense as well, yeah. It's basically a mishmash of the Grunfeld and the Slav. We've seen that from the top players. They do like to kind of put together ideas from different openings.
And the Slav we've seen was a very good opening in the tour for Black, correct? The most...
For White.
Was it for White? It was
for White, yes. We learned something that if you're playing on the tour, probably not a good idea to meet the Queen's pawn opening by adopting the Slav defence.
Correct.
Better to do something else. The Nimzo Indian, I think, had a very good percentage.
For Black, yeah.
For Black.
Actually, Black was scoring really well against one E4. That's why we've seen a trend towards D4, the English opening, the Reti opening, lots of others. E4, out of fashion at the very, very top level, at least in this rapid format. And yeah, maybe the Slav not scoring so well for Black, but if you mix it with the Grunfeld, maybe you give it a bit of extra luck, a bit of extra spice. And here, I'm surprised to see Giri thinking this bishop move, by far the most normal, the most logical. And, OK, Magnus already putting pressure on Black's centre. We call this kind of half the Slav in a way, because Black's pawns in the middle of the board on light squares protect each other. But now, after this trade, White has the most central pawn. White has a bit more space. Black has given up a whole bunch of squares. That being said, the White Queen has lost a bit of time. So I'm expecting Anish Giri now to just castle his king. And, yeah, relatively balanced middle game ahead, maybe.
Yeah, I expect the White Queen to get kicked about. But it's actually not a big deal. My experience goes that, you know, the Queen can sometimes even find itself on very strange locations, such as the B1 square. But it's OK. Yeah. Chess is funny like that.
Yeah.
Is this the Russian variation where you bring the queen out? I mean, I remember there was some games. Botvinnik had this a couple of times in some very important competitions. Normal moves coming up here, both sides developing, and it really is about is White's centre strong, or could it actually be weak? I guess this position, and I always like personally having the extra central pawn. I find it a bit easier to play with. I'm sure Jovanka does as well, knowing Jovanka's style. But David, you played a Grunfeld, so maybe you actually like being on the Black side of this structure.
Yeah, I do normally, but I like to be able to challenge White's stronghold in the middle as quickly as possible. Now Black's moved this pawn 1 square forward. It takes longer to push it again and really break down White's centre. I guess Black will long-term be aiming for this pawn push, or maybe even this pawn push, just to challenge. And if you can successfully implement maybe a pawn trade, open the position up even more, then Black's bishop, for example, might come to life on this diagonal. Long-term, Black has decent prospects, but as you guys mentioned, short-term, White does have 2 central pawns against just 1. So, yeah, short-term, I think the older I get, the more I prefer White in these types of positions. Minimal risk. One plan for White, for Magnus right now, would be, for example, OK, he drops his queen back first, and I'm expecting Black's queen to come out and maybe offer this trade. And then one idea for White is to move his rook across in order to support a pawn push. And, Yep, here we go. This is the current position, and instead of this rook move, white's bishop comes out. Very natural square. I don't think we'll see a trade of queens yet. It's kind of a waiting game there. If black trades the white queen, after this recapture, white gains a semi-open file. And likewise, if, for example, white trades the black queen, then black gains the semi-open file. So it's a bit of a standoff.
But Magnus's last move with the bishop, I'm not aware of it being a main move. I mean, like you mentioned, the rook stepping sideways one square to support the e4 push, it seems to me much more logical.
Yeah, I think he's maybe borrowing an idea from the Slav itself. Normally in the Slav, we wouldn't see this setup with a pawn here and a bishop here. We would normally see the pawn maybe pushed forward on the e6 square and the black bishop located behind it on the e7 square. And there, this is a very, very trendy move, the white bishop coming out. But it's basically the exact same position, just with this small difference of the black bishop placed on a different square. So it's roughly balanced. I still quite like white's chances, but Anish Giri, I mean, once he brings the rooks towards the centre, maybe to this square, maybe to this square, I think he's solid enough for now. So yeah, it's an interesting opening choice. I'm slightly disappointed, I must say. I'm deflated now that Magnus didn't go for something a bit more spicy, a bit more aggressive.
I'm surprised, really, because, I mean, this, you know, when he gets to the knockout stages, maybe he has to try to really neutralise the white pieces a lot more, but he hasn't got much to lose by playing something a little bit wonky in this game. Maybe that shows he really wants to beat Anish and give him quite a lot of respect as well.
But I have to ask, so in those games that we've seen Magnus play these very strange opening moves, the results have been quite good for him, right? He hasn't lost any of those games.
No, he hasn't.
2 draws, was it? I mean, F3 was a... No, did he win with F3?
F3 was a draw. That was against Duda in the Oslo Esports Cup.
He was winning.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was and he also beat Vidit playing 1d3.
Yeah.
Which was a bit unusual, let's say. And then with the h4 move, that was a draw.
Yeah.
So, but it was winning.
But he was winning there
But
as
he was
well.
winning there, and
Yeah.
there was a very thematic rook and pawn endgame. I recommend everyone to go and check it out. A good learning point there.
Yeah.
Here in the studio yesterday, we were struggling with that rook and pawn endgame between Carlsen and Wei Yi. I mean, we saw the evaluation bar said it was winning, but how? And I think we all went back and studied it afterwards, and it's one of the most unique rook and pawn endgames you'll find out there.
Wow.
Really good kind of brain training for endgames and calculation.
Yeah. And talking about learning, our quiz of the day is all about asking the question, what is your experience with Chessable? And Elvis Mihailovic says, absolutely worth it. And we see a trade of queens. And if as an amateur, I've learned quite a lot in the 6 months, awesome courses and great teachers. Just a superb tool Chessable offers.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Very nice
Yeah.
tweet from Elvis Mihailovic. And John Hickman, I think I know John, so hello, John, says that they have been using Chessable for over 5 years. As soon as I discovered it, I felt that it was something special for chess learning, and I've enjoyed seeing it progress from strength to strength. Great to hear that, John. And hopefully I will play you again in Jersey.
Are you playing in Jersey? Oh, no, I think it clashes with this, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't
Guernsey.
think...
Guernsey.
You know, I actually got to know and chat to John because we would have some coffee together in Jersey. I love Jersey, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's one of the great things about chess, and how it unites people, and you can meet new friends, and you get to go to strange places, interesting places. So it really is. I mean, a lot of us, we know each other for all our lives, and some of my friends I sort of met when I was about 7 years old.
Wow.
And I'm still in contact with them. So it's lovely, all through chess. So it really has that side to it as well.
And Jersey, I know they will actually have a team for the Olympiad.
And for the very first time, they will have a women's team.
Fantastic.
Which is a big deal because Jersey is a very small chess community, and to find 5 women players, and it's a really recent development. That, I mean, it's huge.
Fantastic.
And I think Chessable might be helping them.
Yeah. Chessable gonna help the Jersey team towards the Olympiad, and I think many people are wondering if you guys will play. We have a bunch of moves, though.
We do have a bunch of moves. The queens have left the board, so we're in kind of a middle game / end game right now. And white does have a bit of a weird pawn structure. I'm still unsure whose position I like here, to be honest. White has a bunch of weak pawns, especially on the B file, but White has a lot of space and a lot of open lines. So we'll go into the plans maybe a bit deeper in a moment.
All right.
But still very balanced.
And are you playing in the Olympiad, David?
Yes.
Fantastic. Going to travel to India and Ivanka?
Yes.
Aha! And Simon?
No.
But you might be there.
I might be there, yeah. We'll wait
Really?
and see. Maybe, yeah.
Will you be
yeah,
there,
might
Kaya?
over there, so.
I will probably follow you guys from here. Yeah, we do have a tournament coming up, a major coming up right after that one finishes, the Olympiad. But I'm really looking forward to follow you guys. What do you think England's chances are?
Do you want me to be really optimistic, or do you want me to be very English and play down our chances?
I think they have great chances, Kaya.
yeah?
I think they really do. Yeah, they're a strong team.
Yeah.
They do really well. They work really well as a team.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really exciting.
It's going to be David, Gwaine,
Not Nigel, Mickey Adams.
Mickey Adams.
Luke McShay. Well,
Yeah.
actually, I don't know. I'm announcing the team before I even know it.
Yeah, I don't
Just
think it's
guessing.
confirmed yet, but the usual suspects.
Yeah.
How
How cool.
Well, I mean, we've done very well the last few team tournaments, but these days, England's, at least the Open team, our kind of top players, we don't play as much as we used to since the pandemic. So
But you have had some great results in the tournaments you have played, David.
yes.
So that is some great news.
And you're part of the team that beat China. We mentioned that the other day, which is incredible. I mean, beating China is just phenomenal results. So just do that every round, you'll be all right. So,
try.
yeah.
We've beaten them a few times.
They also have lucky jackets, which were not the colour that I intended them to be. But anyhow, it makes everyone look like schoolboys. And it was like, oh, my goodness me. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh. But, we'd paid a lot of money for them. And I was like, OK, fine.
Cool
But they are incredibly lucky.
Yeah.
Nearly every single time they wear them, someone wins a medal.
We've got this great picture from the World Team Championships in 2019 where we got silver just behind Russia, but ahead of China, India. And then we literally look like a kind of a lineup of naughty schoolboys. And all of us have this blue jacket and all of us have different coloured trousers which don't match the jacket or the shoes. So
I need to dig up that picture.
chess and fashion.
Do you think, I was wondering this, I mean, like some chess players, and I think they've become more fashionable in the last sort of 10, 20 years, but I don't know, in general, chess players have never been that fashionable, have they? I mean, maybe at the top, but you go to your weekend competitions, and one way I could always spot a chess player, like let's say I got off the tube and I wasn't sure where the venue was, I just look for the person carrying the plastic bag, because it'd always be, the chess player would always be that person with his maybe shirt tucked outside their jeans and carrying that plastic bag, and he's a chess player, I'll follow him, I'll find the venue. But they got more fashionable, yeah, especially at the top,
I'd like to think so.
Yeah, well, we got you leading the way, David.
Stop, Sam. I'm just following these guys. And talking of these guys, we have had a few moves, and the evaluation bar is really shifting towards Black's favour. And on the board, I think I'm inclined to agree. I still don't think White's out of it. I think Magnus has decent chances, but let's jump in to show what has changed. And it's all about the queens coming off, first of all, but it's all about these pawns. They are doubled, they are isolated, they are weak. They're definitely targets, but how can Black get at them? We just see the bishop coming to the centre of the board, doing a good job of blockading and kind of neutralising this white bishop on a long diagonal, and Magnus just pushing his pawn forward. And it's a weird pawn structure. All of these pawns now, all of White's pawns on dark squares, which means the light squares are weak. But also, for example, later when Black pushes a pawn forward, there are easy plans of the bishop coming and trying to grab this pawn. I am inclined to choose Black here. I don't think White's out of it. For example, if he does drop his knight back, if he's able to, for example, jump in with his knight to this dream square, just covering all the holes, maybe even jumping into Black's camp later. But it's definitely Magnus on the defensive for the next couple of moves, at least. I think Anish, maybe he needs something even more direct. This pawn push I just mentioned does allow, for example, White to, yes, go back with the bishop, but White allowing now.
Could you do a ridiculous move here, and this won't happen, but because they love their bishops, but could you take the knight?
Take this knight off. Yep.
Just so you stop that manoeuvre, which seemed like a really nice manoeuvre for the white knight, and then go for your plan here, maybe?
Yeah.
Something along this line, because the pawn you pointed out, White's pawn on the queen side, is a real weakness, and at least you can get some pressure against that guy. Maybe. But
Actually,
I mean,
Simon, I really like this idea.
Because I don't think the White's light square bishop is fantastic, because you don't really have many pawn breaks to open it up with White's pawn structure. So maybe a simple way to just proceed here.
Yeah, and you're right. The only pawn push you can play actually loosens the position. Now the black knight will simply retreat somewhere, and this pawn now eternally weak. So, yeah, I like that. I like that a lot, Simon. The more I look at it, I think that might be black's safest, but also best move. And
Played it. Wow.
Wow, you are a fortune teller.
I got a positional idea right. Wow. Oh, he mouse slipped on the next move,
Oh.
though. But this is also very logical. No, it's not a mouse slip. Yeah, I mean, I thought he'd push it one square, but this also makes sense, right? But opening the position's risky when you've given up the bishop as well. So, yeah.
I'm less keen. I thought just put your pawns on light squares. You've traded off your light square bishop, block it up. All these pawns on light squares now actually help to fight against this bishop. But instead, Anish says no, he wants to open things. And after we see a trade of pawns, which is guaranteed to happen, yes, this pawn is attacked, but it can be easily defended. White just lifts up the rook now and covers all the holes. The problem is these pawns, they are weaknesses, but you can't really attack them anymore. If you drop your bishop back, then white can just remove one of the attackers of the pawns. For example, bishop takes knight, and very, very level position. But black here has an isolated pawn. Anish definitely doesn't want that. So in the current position, instead of retreating his bishop, he's just put his remaining pawn on light squares. All of white's pawns are on dark squares, all of black's pawns on light squares. Maybe that will just balance each other out. I don't think white's going to win this one, though, because white is the one with the long-term weaknesses.
And also, Anish hasn't lost a single game so far in this tournament. He has won 7 out of 13 games. Incredible tournament for Anish. He seems to be in top shape, I have to say.
Maybe his best performance on the tour since last year's Magnus Carlsen Invitational, which he actually won, Anish Giri. Since then, he's struggled a bit, maybe not quite at his best. We're used to seeing him in tournaments like Vaikanze just steamroller a lot of players.
Yeah, but the last month at the Oslo Esports, he really seemed to struggle and he looked a little bit sad and dejected.
Yeah, that's true.
But sometimes this is what you need to go through. You need to have this dip and then you can recover and play some great chess.
Yeah.
And, the unfortunate thing about this format, though, is that you do have preliminaries and then everything kind of gets reset and then you have the quarterfinals and the semi-finals. So, he will have to maintain his form, not just today, but tomorrow as well. Although he gets bragging rights and also tie-break advantages by finishing top of the table.
But if the standings were exactly like they are now, he would actually face Ariane Tari then in quarterfinals, and that's been a second for him several times. So they would know each other very well.
Yeah, I mean, anyone can beat anyone in this field, but it's always difficult when you play someone you've worked with. I mean, that just adds a bit of psychology that you don't really want. You just want to be able to focus on the board. But
I have a question to you when it comes to seconds and the people that they're working for. So I understand that the seconds wouldn't be able to use the openings that they prepare together. But what about the reverse?
I
think it's just bad etiquette. I don't know if it's any contractual obligations, but it's just a bit rude.
Do they have to sign a contract when they're becoming seconds? I mean, I guess there's legal documents that some people do, some people don't, because you can't just give away all those ideas, can you? Or straight away. So I don't know. It's strange. I don't know what the deal is with never been asked. Still waiting my call up, David.
If I'm ever good enough or rich enough to hire a second, Simon, you'll be top of the list.
You'd have to have a lot of dosh, mate. A lot of dosh, for this.
I know how expensive your rates are, so I need to.
All those chessable courses, information, So.
And I mean, it's interesting because we did a podcast with Anish Giri, we did one with Jordan van Vreest, and they talked about it a little bit. About stuff like that. And Anish did mention that Jordan had to sign a contract when he was working with Magnus. I mean, of course, we don't know the terms of those, whether secrets are part of it in terms of which openings they can talk about, which openings they can discuss with others. But it's at the very top level, I think it's a different game. It's a lot of cloak and dagger. It's like a spy novel.
Secrecy.
Yeah.
I remember that game... the rook has centralised itself. I remember that opening idea that Gufeld, and I can't remember who it was, that they concocted this fantastic idea together. And Gufeld's student, Maya Chibinanadze, was going to play that position, and he didn't want to tell her. So he just said to her, keep looking, keep looking, keep looking.
And did she find it?
She did.
Aha.
Good stuff.
But is that kind of breaking the contract?
Yep, definitely. As long as nobody finds out, it's fine.
That's one of my favourite books, actually, Goodfield's book. I think it's his Life and Times, his autobiography. He was quite a larger-than-life character. So if you're looking for a good chess book, Goodfield's, I don't know, his autobiography written by him is very interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, meanwhile, on the board, we have seen a trade of one set of rooks, a bit of manoeuvring. Nothing really has changed. The pawn structure is still exactly the same. The trade of rooks has meant that black occupies the D file, the open file, but no real entry squares or no effective entry squares into the white camp. White's king, meanwhile, centralizing itself. I think Magnus here, he's getting ready for a scenario where maybe the remaining set of rooks get traded off, and then White's king is the quickest to the center. White's king might win the race, and...
Is it possible for the black knight to jump in and give itself up?
This is maybe what Anish is thinking about, a bit of a flashy move. The black knight here sitting, not really doing too much at the moment, and Jovanka wants to jump it in to attack this bishop. And it looks like the black knight is under threat, but if the white rook moves and captures this black knight, then it loses the protection of its own bishop. And black's rook can now capture the white bishop, and suddenly the black rook creeps behind, starts grabbing some pawns. This would be very good for Anish, but I think the idea after the knight jumps in, which it has done, is that the rook doesn't move, instead the bishop retreats. And now the bishop keeps everything guarded. And this has happened, the black knight now leaping back, and it's going to reposition itself potentially on this eternal outpost where it can't get kicked away. Not sure what it does there, really, but it looks nice and pretty. And I'm pretty sure we'll see Magnus improve the king. There we go. And after the black knight moves, then at some point we might see a trade of the remaining rooks.
Okay, interesting move there from Anish, playing very quickly, moving the pawn by his king 2 squares, because you have to be very careful, you know, moving pawns, because you can't move them backwards, so it surprises me a little bit. Maybe not a problem as white doesn't have a knight to jump into those holes created. But yeah, I mean, it seems fairly even still, doesn't it, this position? Very
even, and it's kind of both sides have created a barrier. With this pawn push, black not only has created a path in for his king towards the center, but he has locked down on any white pawn pushes. This pawn can't push forward safely now. This square is covered twice. This pawn can't push safely now. This square is covered twice, and same for this pawn. So it's very hard for white to make progress. He's dropped his bishop back to one of my favourite squares for this bishop, just because it's nice and safe, but it doesn't actually do anything here.
The Grischuk square.
The Grischuk square, yeah.
Why is it called that?
I remember watching a great game. I got my, I was cheering. It was David Howe for the white pieces against Grischuk. And David had a very good win by playing this similar idea in the Isle of Man competition.
Yeah, it's funny, in that tournament I won 3 games with white by putting my bishop on this square.
Interesting.
I think it's just coincidence. They weren't necessarily great moves putting the bishop here, but it keeps the bishop nice and safe for later, and we might be about to see... I know whenever Jovanka makes that noise, she thinks it's going to be a draw. We might be about to see the white bishop come forward.
I have to watch out for that if I play you. What was it again? Do it again?
Let's go back to the players. We are about to see a result. The players are repeating the moves, and there we go. Abrupt, but nothing to do. The players repeat.
So it is a draw between the 2 top players so far.